as the panel moderator on the topic, which is easier to hack. And this is safe computing practices and how to avoid cyber paranoia and thwart hackers. And with that, I will attempt to seamlessly share my screen. Watch this magic. Are you all seeing a screen that says, which is easier to hack? Great. So which is easier to hack, a computer or frankly, the person? I worked at the University of Alaska Supercomputing Center for several years, and I can tell you that computers are extremely difficult to hack, but people are pretty easy to hack. So how many of you know who the Thermians are? Raise your hand. The Thermians from the movie Galaxy Quest were a race of aliens that had no concept of deception. They assumed that Earth's broadcasts like Star Trek and Gilligan's Island were historical documentaries. The Thermians were like babies on the internet. So my question for you is, are you a Thermian on the internet? So basically, I'm talking about the human factor in security. And the reason we talk about the human factor is that people are the weakest link in computer security. People tend to trust. People don't expect deceit. People can be gullible. People can be unaware of threats. People may fail to follow basic safe computing practices. People may not have a healthy skepticism, and people may not have their configurations set right. That's why we are easy to hack. Let's begin with email spoofing. Email spoofing is a fraudulent activity in which the sender's address and or parts of the email header are altered in a way that disguises who sent the email in the first place. Now, here is a screen that I think more than one person in this room knows what it is. I speak several computer programming languages. Doesn't everybody who knows at least one? And this computer programming language is called PHP. And in about 6 lines of code, I just sent an email message that looks like it's from president@whitehouse.gov. And that's all it takes. And there was a time in my life when I used PHP to send, group emails, mass emails, great big mail merges to people in an organization. And it was okay that I was doing it. I wasn't spoofing anybody, but frankly, sending an email and making it look like it's from anybody in the world is quite easy to do. This is a spoofed email message. It really does look like it's from PayPal. And in fact, it's demanding that your response is required and why your response is required. And it's kind of telling you that there's a problem that you need to fix. And somewhere on this email is a link. And that says Resolution Center. Don't click that link. I'll get to why in a minute. But if you click that link, links can be faked. Links can take you to other websites other than PayPal. So don't be hacked. Open another web browser and go directly to paypal.com. In fact, type in paypal.com if that's where you want to go. So what is phishing? And it's pronounced phishing. Phishing is a type of social engineering attack that's used to often steal your data and fraudulently use your credentials to use your credit card, masquerade as you on social media. Phishing is a broad term for any attempt for people as a group, but spear phishing is an attack specifically on an individual. My wife received a spear phishing attack just yesterday in email. It had her own name in the email, but she was wise not to click on the link. Here's one that I received last week on Facebook. Now, I don't know whether my friend sent this link to me or not, but it said YouTube on it. It looks like YouTube. And this simple message is, it's you. And I was intrigued by this because I have a YouTube channel and I put videos up on YouTube all the time. And I thought my friend was just simply asking, hey, is this one of your videos on YouTube? So I clicked through and found this page, which looks a lot like Facebook, uses the color palette of Facebook, uses the font that Facebook uses. It looks darn real like Facebook. And it's asking me to enter my email address and my password. Raise your hand. How many of you would do that? I'm looking in the gallery. Shake your head. No, I wouldn't do that. Good for you. The answer is go to facebook.com and type in that exactly. In fact, look closely at the URL at the top of this page. That is not the Facebook URL. This is one I've been receiving fairly often, and I haven't figured out how to block it, but it's a pop-up that my Chrome browser is sending me that says my Norton Security subscription has expired. And I don't click on the renew button now. Actually, I can go to, because I used to code web pages, I look at web page source all the time. And there was no link anywhere within the web page source that mentioned Norton Security. It would have taken me to a place that would have probably asked me to register or log in or buy a product. But anyway, enter some information about me personally that they could use. I guess I'm saying have a healthy skepticism about just about everything you do. This was a phishing attempt. The button would have taken me to a fake URL. Actually, I did test that, and it did take me to a fake URL, but it took a pretty good eye to see it because the URL was not norton.com. They had registered the domain name newnorton.com, which looks really close and almost sounds believable. But now you know, type in norton.com if that's where you want to go. So how are you safe? How can you prevent phishing? Never respond to requests for personal information like passwords or bank account numbers via email or phone. And I got to tell you, I'm particularly protective of some really good friends of mine who are in their 90s, and they grew up in a time where they just simply trusted everyone. And trying to get them to be just a little bit like Thermians and have a little bit more skepticism about the world is just a little bit of a task. They're just such lovely people. Visit websites and companies that you do business with by typing the address directly in the browser window, and do not click on links or buttons in unexpected emails because they can be spoofed, as you saw. Do not call phone numbers that you find in emails. Go to norton.com's website, look up their phone number at their website. Be leery of URLs that do not have the company name directly before the top level domain. And a top level domain is the .com, .org, .edu, .something, but those are top level domains. And those follow the company name. Now here's an example, bankofamerica.com. Looks good, actually is good. Click on that. Bankofamerica.pp.com is a real questionable URL because that would take you to a domain called pp.com. Nothing to do with Bank of America. IRS.gov, yeah, that looks pretty good, but IRS.us, I think that would be kind of questionable. So what is a top-level domain? Again, top-level domains are .com, .gov, .org, and be wary of websites that don't have their name in front of the top level. You know what? I think I just had a duplicate slide there. How many of you caught that? Raise your hand. Another thing to look for is the S in HTTPS, which indicates security in the two-way encryption that is part of browsing the internet. So if you're at a website that just has HTTP, That's a lot, and your information goes out over the internet to a web server, and then web server sends you back a web page. If it's an HTTP website, then that information is going back and forth between you and the web server unencrypted. It's a lot like sending your passwords to somebody else on a postcard through the US mail. It's visible by anybody at all. I used to geek around with Unix, and at one point I was curious. I set up a sniffer on my own home network to see what was going on in my neighborhood, and all of a sudden I saw all the neighborhood traffic, and I stopped myself because it just didn't feel right. But it was a geeky kind of experiment to see that I could do it, and sure enough, it's quite easy to intercept information that's going through a network. But if that information is encoded with an HTTPS, then nobody's going to get to see it. I recommend two-factor authentication, and that is, provide your smartphone number so that you can receive a text message if you're logging into your bank, for example. I use that when I'm logging into a number of websites where I really want my identity and my credentials protected. Public Wi-Fi networks, are they safe? Safe practices are, if you're in a public Wi-Fi network, only connect to websites that use HTTPS. Again, anybody can sniff the traffic in a network. But if that traffic is encrypted with HTTPS, Hypertext Transfer Protocol Secure, then nobody's going to get to read what you're typing in and what's going back and forth between your computer and a web server. So what are your countermeasures in all this? I recommend two-factor authentication, use secure connections, which means HTTPS, use a virtual private network, and we're going to hear more about that from one of our next speakers, install protective software, which means antivirus, and use firewalls. Firewalls prevent unwanted traffic from getting into your computer. And education, and this is how we keep ourselves from being hacked. Choose strong passwords, ignore unsolicited email, be wary of attachments, links, and stay informed.
Game over.